what's up? It's a new year, so that means time to talk budgeting. I know it's not the most fun thing to talk about, but I'm really tired of people that just post all of these unrealistic budgeting rules. So today I'm gonna cover simple yet effective ways that I've budgeted, personally saved thousands of dollars, but we're not doing the grilled chicken broccoli diet type of thing. We're still splurging and spending money on ourselves. We're just saving a crap ton of money in the process. I'll be covering a side job that I've done for years that's paid me more than any other side job that anyone can do, how I saved $10,000 when I was only 23 years old. I'm gonna go through and show you the budgeting sheets that I've used the past 10 years so you can see all of the numbers and real-time budgeting that I did. And then at the end, I'm gonna answer all of your burning questions that you asked me on Instagram. We have a lot to get to, so get a notepad, get a snack, put on a comfy blanket, and let's just get into it. So the first thing we're starting off with is making a budget. A lot of people say they're living paycheck to paycheck, but something that seriously opened my eyes when I was in a budgeting group one time and I saw someone who said that her and her husband are making $250,000 and living paycheck to paycheck. And I know that that's gonna sound crazy to many of you, it did to me, but it just proves the fact that no matter what you make, you can still live paycheck to paycheck if you don't have your budget and your finances in order. And it's so easy to do. So the first thing that we need to do is write down, ideally the past 3 months, write down every single thing that you spend and put it into a category. So eating out, getting food delivered to you, groceries, going out to eat for entertainment, movies, getting your nails done, getting your hair cut, getting things for your children, Target stops, Starbucks, all that kind of stuff. I want you to write it down and group it into whatever way is most effective for you. When I first did this, I want to say like 7 years ago, when my husband and I were living paycheck to paycheck, I realized we were spending over $1,000 a month on food. And it was because we were just going to the grocery store and spending whatever we wanted and then getting takeout as well, and it was just unreasonable. Then we need to write down in a separate spot our income each week after taxes, retirement, whatever else gets taken out of it, what actually hits your bank account. Write down if it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever, and then write down your expenses next to it. Here's where a lot of people get caught up. A haircut, getting your nails done, DoorDash, those aren't expenses. Expenses are medication, doctor copays, water, heat, electricity, vehicle expenses, but not like getting a car wash. Vehicle expenses meaning getting your oil changed, car insurance, monthly payment, all of that. And leave food out of it. I know food is an expense, but we're gonna leave it out of it for now, just so we can see how much we have left over. Internet I would put in there because that's fair. Your phone bill you can put in there, but we can also adjust with that. But I want it to be things that are hardcore expenses. Now subtract that amount from your income and see how much is left. Hopefully there should be a decent amount. And by a decent amount, I don't mean thousands and thousands of dollars, but I mean there should be money there. And if there's not at least a couple $100 to $1,000 there, that's when we need to step aside and start figuring out how to earn extra money. If there is, say, $1,000, it really depends on how much you're making and your expenses and all of that. You have money and we can move forward with this. So when I first did this, it was, again, years ago. My husband and I were living together, living paycheck to paycheck. We actually live the same now that we did then, and we make significantly more money, and that's how we've saved so much. Now we have the amount of income that we receive each month and how much our expenses are. We're going to break down everything else that is a necessity but isn't necessarily a necessity. So subscription fees, going out to eat, getting your nails done, getting your hair done, yada, yada, yada. I would first go through things that you feel are serious necessities. That's gonna be different for every person. So if you think getting your hair colored is a necessity and you wanna put that in there, put it in there. If you think your Starbucks each week is a necessity, put a lot amount in there. It's gonna be different for everyone, but I want you to be realistic and put maybe a quarter of the things that are necessities, or at most 50% of the things that you're paying for monthly as necessities, and then we can break down and try to figure out other things. Okay, so we have how much we're making, we have our expenses that we have to be paying for every month, we have optional expenses, and then we have money left over. So I wanna tell you about the highest paying side job I've ever had. I do not want any eyes rolled because I tell this to people all of the time, and I think the immediate reaction is like, oh, that's not a side job. And that's budgeting. You can save so much more than you would be earning in a side job with budgeting. If you get a couple side jobs and you're making a couple extra $100 a week, or you're on top of your savings and saving a couple extra $100 a week, guess what? You're still making the same amount of money. People don't realize that, but you're spending your time budgeting and couponing and saving, and a lot that's that's time spent. So if you say, I don't have enough time, think of it as a side job. If you spend 2 hours a week budgeting, and that's gonna save you a couple $100s a month, that's the same as if you were to work DoorDash for 2 hours a week and hopefully make a couple $100s a month or whatever you'd make on that. Okay, so we're gonna break down now into different types of budgets so that we can take all of that extra money that we had and allocate it. Personally, this is how I do it. There's a bunch of different ways to budget. How I do it is you go through every single dollar that you have and have it allocated to a place. What worked best for me and my husband is a couple different things. One, I think we have 7 different savings accounts. One of them is called car, one of them is called dog, one of them is called house, vacation. There was one called wedding because we paid for our wedding cash. For example, the dog savings account I have has $1,000 in it at all times. This is in case my dog has to go to the emergency vet and we're really struggling financially. We never know when that could happen. I don't consider it money that I have. If somebody was to say, what money do you have? This is not money I touched. This is in my dog savings account. And if you're wondering, if you aren't familiar, if you have a credit union, I think any bank, you can call them or online or whatnot, open as many savings accounts as you want. So you have your checking and your savings, which I have. And then on top of that, I have all these sub savings accounts. So basically it's a savings account, but it makes it easier to organize things for me personally. And then you can name them too. So I have them named car. I have one named my son's name so that anytime he gets checks or money from people for birthdays, he's only 2. So I just throw it into that savings account. But otherwise that money would just get lost. How am I going to figure out that that's his specific money unless it's actual cash in hand? So if you have a sub savings account for a vacation and you realize, oh, I need to make ends meet and blah, blah, blah. I want to buy this really nice stereo system. We're not taking money out of vacation for that. That's not an option. That's your vacation savings account. It stays in there. Pretend that it's locked in there legally and is only allowed to be spent on vacation. That's the mindset you need to have. If you get a raise or if you get a bonus, tax money, money from the president, whoever, I don't know, extra money, that needs to be allocated to spots. I don't want you to think of that as just income for that week. That's how you can just spend that stuff frivolously. So if you get, say, a 3% raise, why don't you make that 3% go into a savings account every month so you don't even notice it? Because what's going to happen is you're going to get a 3% raise and you're going to be like, oh, it only comes out to $50 a week or whatever. Well, if you have $50 a week, that's $200 a month. That's $2,400 a year. I'm sure you could use an extra $2,400 a year instead of spending that $50 a week on coffee and not even realizing it, or an extra Target trip. If you're putting that money to a spot where you don't even realize it, and then you're saying to yourself, I wish I could go on that vacation to wherever, that's $2,000. There you go right there. So I want to change a little bit and get into food budgeting because I feel like this is something that people spend a lot of their money on. It's so difficult nowadays with things like DoorDash, Grubhub, all of that. I fall into it too, where you can have food immediately delivered to you. You can sit there and see a commercial for cookies. Oh my God, I want crumble cookies, or I wish I had crumble cookies right now. You can sit on your couch and have it delivered to you for a lot of money, even if you have a subscription. That's something that you really need to budget and allocate for. So the first thing we're gonna budget for is grocery shopping. There's different ways that you can figure that out depending on how many people you have. I'm not gonna tell you you need to spend a certain amount. You wanna budget a certain amount for either weekly shopping or bi-weekly shopping or whatnot. It's up to you if you want to have it delivered, and if you think it's better splurge-wise to pay a certain amount of money a month, say for like a Walmart delivery service. And that way you don't have any impulse buys when you're doing your weekly shopping. But in that same respect, I wouldn't allow yourself to just purchase anytime you want. So if you're going to get a subscription for a company to deliver your groceries to you or to do a pickup, whatnot, if you go to like our local grocery store, you can do a pickup, but you still have to pay a little bit of a fee. If you're gonna do that, limit it to once a week. That was one thing my husband and I did that was huge with our budgeting, is you were not allowed to buy anything except on one day a week. So say Monday. So he'd leave work and he'd be like, oh, I really want this dressing for our dinner tonight. I really want to grab lemons for our fish. Problem was, when he would go to do that, he'd grab 6 other things. So you need to cut off the daily shopping, whether it's delivery apps or it's in person. We're not going to be getting, oh, you know, it would be fun if we just had these little cookies. No, figure out how to make cookies from scratch. That way you're eliminating all this impulse buying that a lot of times you're not needing. The biggest thing that helped me and my husband, I feel like, when we were budgeting is our monthly allowance. We were each allowed $50 a month to spend on whatever we wanted. And I mean whatever we want. So for me, I spent $8.11 on Panera, $8.03 on Chipotle, and $9.95 on a paint by number kit. And then this month I got food for a lot of them, did a $5 purchase at Gap. So this was our monthly budget. I made an Excel spreadsheet. I'm sure there's a bunch of free ones online. I literally just went in Excel. I wrote category, projected, actual, and over under. Clearly I just mainly used actual, but in the beginning I would write how much I expected it to be and then how much it was. So we had rent first, which was $15.10 for us, then National Grid, so that would change every month. Cable, co-pays were for things like medical, therapy, chiropractic appointments, anything like that, sick visits. And then we had my student loans and my husband's student loans, car payment, car insurance, phone bill, gas, I think this was water, Netflix, Spotify, medication, our dog, my husband's haircut, Weight Watchers, and the gym. So we'd write everything out and then each month keep track of how much we spent. And so this month, February, I missed one. This is like 3 years of budgeting. I would keep track of all of it. The main thing that we were doing with these is we also had a sheet of keeping track of our $50 a month. As you can see, my husband clearly stocked up on his $50 a month. He would save and splurge on larger items because right here he had $371 on this month because he saved so much and wouldn't spend a lot. I am different. I would usually spend my $50 every month or at least a decent amount of it. But if I had something that I wanted to save towards, I would save towards it. If you have teenagers, this is something you might want to implement as well. If they are sharing money with you or if you're giving them an allowance, you could say you get 20 bucks a month to spend however you want. If you don't spend it, it rolls over. And then that way it makes you double think about purchases that you want to make for them. It's great to implement for teenagers or younger kids, and it's also great to implement for yourself. The next thing that I want to get into is ways to make saving your money easier. So if you get direct deposit for your paycheck, which I suggest, one thing that we personally do that is so helpful is to take a certain amount of your paycheck and allot it into savings. It's very easy to do with your employer if you get direct deposit. You could just speak to HR or whoever runs those things and say that you want a certain amount put into a separate savings account. If they can't do that, then you can speak to your bank, and that's something that can be automatically done every month for free, is a certain amount taken out. So you can have it scheduled so that every day that you get paid, say 20% of that gets taken out. And you're like, well, I don't have the 20%. You do. We're gonna make it so that you do. So for example, my husband's paycheck, I think 10% of it or 20% of it gets taken out every week and goes into another account that we have. And it just sits there and accrues. And we often forget that we have it because we don't even think we have it. We just always feel like we're getting paid the amount that we see on his paycheck every week, if that makes sense. So say it's like $1,500 bi-weekly we get into the bank account, and then $300 bi-weekly gets put into the savings part. So $1,500 goes into checking, $300 goes into savings. We don't think we're making $1,800 bi-weekly. We think we're making $1,500 bi-weekly because that's what we see that we have to spend, if that makes sense. So making it so that that money's not even accessible to you or not something that you see is so helpful. Now, I know a lot of you probably already have debt and you're wondering, okay, but what about all of the debt that I have? Should I be putting all of my money into that debt? This is a controversial topic, and every person that you talk to is going to tell you differently. I personally have over $20,000 in student loan debt. I also have a car that's not fully paid off and a mortgage. So I have debt. I don't have extreme debt like credit card debt or anything like that, but I do have debt, and I'm still spending money and not throwing all of it into that debt personally. That's how I live. I don't think it's realistic to be paying off your car and your house and all of that before spending money on yourself. You want to change things slightly so that it's realistic. So no, we're not going to be putting that money that's aside and going to savings. We're not going to throw it all at a car payment or a house or whatever. Now, if you have debt that's going to make it so that you can't keep the lights on, you can't keep a job, certain things are going to be taken from you, yeah, we're going to address that debt first. And from here on out, if it's not a necessity, we're not putting anything on a credit card unless we are good with credit cards. We're not using credit cards as like this future money. Okay. I posted on my Instagram stories a Q&A asking you guys any questions you had on budgeting. There's some specific stories and examples. I haven't read into them. I scrolled really quickly. So I'm going to go through all of the commonly asked questions right now and see if we can answer and help you guys get on the right track for 2025. Okay, the first one that I see I'm actually very excited about. It says, budgeting on vacation, do you do it or not? My answer to this is holy crap, yes. Some examples. My husband and I went to Las Vegas in 2020, right before the pandemic in February. We spent $1,500 to fly from New York to Vegas to stay in 2 different hotels. It was, I think, 5 nights, either 4 nights or 5 nights. We stayed at the Wynn, which is an insanely expensive hotel, and we stayed at the Vdara. We did 3 different buffets. We did all of the things that you can do on the strip, all of the fun things. We went to all the different shows. We did bus tours, went to Cirque du Soleil, all of that for $1,500. And that is so feasible. Now you're gonna say, well, nowadays you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. There's still ways. Another example, in 2019, we went to Hawaii for our anniversary. We always wanted to go, but it was something that was too expensive. I reached out to a travel agent and she just kept quoting me all of these insane amounts of money. I realized travel agents are something to help you with time. They're not something to help you financially. There's so many different channels that we would follow and and watch in order to figure out what was the best place to go to and the best things travel-wise. So you can look up the certain places you want to travel to, and there will be influencers that go to those places and rate the hotels and rate the excursions so you can plan ahead. So we went to Hawaii for 10 days, and I think we spent $5,000, which probably sounds like a lot because it is, but for 10 days in Hawaii with buffets, we went on many excursions. We had a rental car, stayed in a hotel, flights there and back, very expensive. My husband and I went out on a picnic bench by our hotel. We had a bunch of magazines that the hotel had, the free magazines that show you all the excursions, and we wrote out a budget. We had $1,000 to spend on food and excursions, I believe. It might have been $1,500, and we spent $1,000 in the whole time on food, which sounds like a lot. Food is a lot more expensive in Hawaii. So we had $100 budgeted for 2 of us for a day for all of our meals, and then we had, I think, $500 we set aside for 10 days for excursions. So we had to go through all the excursions and figure out what we wanted to do, what we didn't care about that much. And then for food, one thing that we did that I feel like is super helpful is we got buffet breakfast from the hotel. We got a discount because of AAA, and we would eat that around 10 a.m. every day, and we would load up on that breakfast. We would eat everything in sight. So that way we weren't hungry until about 5 o'clock. We did also bring an entire suitcase just of snacks, a carry-on of just snacks we brought. And for snacks, it wasn't like chips, it was things that would fill you up. So like nuts, protein bars, breakfast bars, anything like that that had substance in it. So then when we went out for the day, whether we were out hiking or traveling or anything, we could pull those bars out and we didn't have to drop 20 bucks every time we were hungry. That's something that's super smart. What is the best way to budget for a family with picky teens who don't like all the same things? I feel like there's some things missing in this, but when I was a teen, my parents did not pay for much at all. And it wasn't necessarily because we couldn't afford it. When I was younger, we couldn't afford much, but my mom worked when I was older and we could afford it, but they wanted to teach us, and I'm happy they did. So I bought my first phone, I want to say like junior year of high school, and I paid for it monthly with my job. And I had to show my mom that I could pay for it monthly. And then they did get a car for my sister that I would share as well, but we had to pay for the insurance and the gas and everything like that. So I would say with teens, my personal opinion, this might be controversial, is you don't owe them to be paying for everything. And it's also helpful for them to budget how they want things. So you can let them know, hey, at the beginning of every month, we're gonna give you this much money. This has to be used to cover your phone. If you don't pay for your phone, then your phone's gonna be turned off. So say like, hey, we're gonna give you $100 a month. That also includes your phone. So then they learn how to divvy their money up. They realize that those expenses are being paid for. Even if you're still paying for it, you're paying for the car insurance, you're paying for all that. Instead of saying, we're gonna give you 50 bucks a month for fun, say, hey, we're gonna give you $300 a month. But with that $300, you have to pay for your car insurance, you have to pay for your gas, you have to pay for your phone bill, things like that, so they can realize how much money is being spent and how to break it down. And don't make it like a punishment thing. Be like, hey, I want you to be able to budget your money and know how to spend it appropriately growing up. Do you usually pay by card or cash? I lose track of how I spend my cash. There's definitely the cash envelope system that I used 15 years ago. I feel like it's pretty outdated now. I personally now use a Southwest credit card. The thing with credit cards is I've never, ever considered a credit card extra money for me to spend. I only spend what I have in my debit account. I have a credit card so I can get points. So we get flights for free because we use a Southwest credit card and pay like a $60 a year fee. So it depends. It might be best for you to just use a debit card. It's not always the best to use credit if you don't think that you can use a credit card yet. Maybe you cash out money and use cash. It's nice though when you're using credits and debit cards is to print out your bank statement and see where everything is going and allocate that directly. But I would say that you don't necessarily have to use cash if you're trying to budget. How do I keep to a budget without a stable income? I'm a full-time student and acting major. First off, congrats, that's epic. I actually saved $10,000 when I was a college student. I was working random unsteady jobs. I was living at home, but I saved that money, which worked out because a year later when I moved out, I was on disability and not making any money. And I used that $10,000 to make it so that I didn't have to move back in home. Long story short, when you have an unstable income, you need to be doing the exact same thing that everyone else is. Calculate your income for the past 3 months and calculate your expenses for the past 3 months and figure out, is your income covering your expenses? If not, you either need to find a way to cut those expenses or you need to get another job to add more income. I love that nowadays DoorDash, Instacart, all those things are jobs that are accessible to anyone. I have this rule in my house. If I can hear the DoorDash driver's car coming, I automatically drop them a huge tip. So last week or the week before, I ordered something for like 30 bucks off DoorDash and I heard their car come in a while, which means they have a rundown car, but they're still out there working and making money. So I dropped them a $50 tip. One time I had a girl who came in a U-Haul to deliver my DoorDash. So I said to myself, this girl doesn't have a working car, paid and invested to rent a U-Haul so that she could make money for that day. So I dropped her a huge tip. So what I do and what I think is best for that example is to pretend that you're paying yourself a constant amount each week. So if you have like 5 different side gigs that are all making money, throw all that into a savings account and then determine how much you would need to be making weekly or bi-weekly to get your expenses and your fun and all of that. So, okay, we'll do one more question. Do you use coupons sometimes when budgeting? I used to be the crazy coupon lady probably 15 years ago. One thing I actually did, which I think is so clever, is I asked my mom if I could coupon our family's groceries for the month and save her over $60 a month. That's how much my phone bill was. And then I wouldn't have to pay my phone bill. And she agreed. So I saved them over $60 a month by doing extreme couponing on their groceries for the month. And because of that, she used that money to cover my phone bill, which was genius. So don't buy things full price. That is like a no to me. And I try not to buy things impulsively either. I think it's important that if you want something, you wait on it and you wait until it goes on sale for starters. There's sites you can go on for larger items like laptops, tablets, phones, things like that, that'll tell you what the lowest price it's been that year has been, because a lot of times you'll see all these huge discounts, but it's not actually on sale. That's the price that it always is. It's going to be super misleading. So I think coupons nowadays aren't always realistic. There are apps you can download. I personally use Coupart. Also, one thing that I do when I check out at a lot of places like Boscov's, Kohl's, Macy's, I'll say, hey, are there any coupons right now? And if you're really nice to people, a lot of times they'll pull out a flyer right there and just scan one. Or they'll say, yeah, there's one online. I'll say, okay, and then I'll pull it up on my phone and scan it. If you're cashing out at a place that you know has coupons, like Hobby Lobby, for example, I would never pay full price. JCPenney's, things like that. You can tell them, okay, hold on, and pull up on your phone and they can show you where to scan the coupon. If you can get 15 or 20% off, like, yes, all day. So I know this was a lot. I hope this was helpful. If you have any more specific budgeting questions, feel free to message me on Instagram and I can answer them there. Or if there's a lot of them in the comments below, I'll make sure to make another video. Please make sure you subscribe and hit that follow notification so you know when I upload my next video, and I hope you have a great day.